Hello everybody. Welcome to the 2024 political election map for newbies. Now, you may be finding yourself looking at these political maps as of late, getting yourself into politics as the election is just 3 months away. Today is July 27th, 2024. Election day is just a little over 3 months away. And, this map is for just a basic explanation of what's currently going on for people who may not follow politics, because there's a lot of things that's been happening. Major headlines, of course, President Biden, as of today, dropped out of the presidential race 6 days ago. You have former President Donald Trump, of course, almost getting assassinated 2 weeks ago today. And, of course, you have the debate that happened between former President Trump and current President Joe Biden about a month ago at this time, at the end of June. And, those things made major headlines, and you may be finding yourself now interested in politics when you're not really used to that. So, not to fear. Here I'm going to go over the current state as of today, July 27, 2024, of the election map and who's the front runner, between, of course, former President Trump and presumptive nominee Vice President Kamala Harris. So just a basic explanation of what things are looking at, what things are looking like for people who may just started to be tuning in to the election, because it's now 3 months away and things are heating up, and there's been crazy things going on like every day. So without further ado, this is the current map I filled in. So the states in red, of course, were for Republicans. The states in blue are for Democrats. So these states are more than likely 99% chance that these states that are filled in red will go to the Republicans, and the states that will go to the Democrats will be blue, based off polling, based off voting history. There's not really much of an explanation for these states. So that brings the Republicans to 219. Of course, it's 270 to win, and the Democrats to 149. So these states are for sure. So just a little context, if you want to get caught up in what's been going on, not just now, but the previous few years with polling data between President Trump and former President Trump and President Biden. Former President Trump was always, trailing President Biden in polls within the last few years until this year. At the beginning of the year, former President Trump finally was able to overcome President Biden's lead in polling data consistently. And, around January, February, President Trump really made his first 1 or 2 point lead over President Biden in the polls consistently. That's never really happened with former President Trump. He's never been, up in the polls all 3 elections. But now, this year, he's been surging, right? As months went on this year in 2024, he was just crushing President Biden almost. And, especially after the debate last month in June, President Trump's numbers surged even more. And, of course, after his assassination attempt, his numbers surged even more. And this was looking like a blowout, like maybe even, 350 electoral votes for former President Trump. However, of course, President Biden now has decided to drop out of the 2024 race. Vice President Kamala Harris has definitely made some noise. It's been 6 days since she announced that she's running, and she's the presumptive nominee. And she's definitely doing a lot better than President Biden. So the Democrats made a great move so far there. But if we were to take a look at the map, let's go to around June, early July, before President Biden dropped out. This is the, like I said, red for Republicans, blue for Democrats for sure states. So, President Trump was doing so well against President Biden that these Democratic stronghold states of New Mexico, we'll start with New Mexico, that's not filled in, New York, and New Jersey. These 3 states, New Jersey, New York, and New Mexico, huge blue states. The last few elections, especially, no real contest. And President Trump, however, around right before President Biden stepped out from the race, was making some noise in New York, New Jersey, and New Mexico. Now, he was still trailing in the polls, but he got it down in New York to about 2 or 3 points on some polls. Same with New Jersey and New Mexico, within 5 to 6 points, which is crazy, right? If you were to say President Trump would win one of these 3 states, New Jersey, New York, or New Mexico, no one would believe you. But he was doing that good against President Biden. President Biden, after the debate especially, just plummeted in polls. It was looking like Trump could get one of those 3 states. But Vice President Kamala Harris, it's only been 6 days, but based off polling, those states are probably going to stay blue. She's doing much better than President Joe Biden in those states. So, like normal, what's probably going to happen, at least as of today, New Mexico, New York, and New Jersey will stay Democrat. She's expanded the lead back in New York to New Jersey and New Mexico about 8-9 points in polling data. So those 3 back to Democrats there. And then you can say the same with Minnesota. You could say the same with Virginia, as well as Maine and New Hampshire. Now, these states are typically leaning Democratic states, meaning, those four states usually go to Democrats and very close, and they're kind of close. They're not too close, but kind of close. Hillary Clinton won these four states in 2016, not by much. Same in 2020 with President Biden winning those four states. Now, just like with New Mexico, New York, and New Jersey, President Trump actually had some leads and was doing better than President Biden on some polls, in Virginia leading him, coming very close in Minnesota, and coming very close, if not leading, in New Hampshire and Maine, which is, again, very good for Republicans. Now, of course, President Biden dropped out. Vice President Harris is doing much better in polling than President Joe Biden. So she's expanded the lead here in Minnesota. It was about a 4 to 5 point Trump lead. 4 to 5 point Biden lead, which in Minnesota, that's not good at all. She's expanded that back to 10 points. So as of now, that's likely to go blue. Same with Virginia. Now, President Trump got that down to 3 or 4 points he trailed President Biden, which for Virginia, that's crazy. President Biden won Virginia by a good amount in 2020. Of course, 2021, Virginia did elect a Republican governor and lieutenant general. So things may have shifted there. But President Trump was, again, just like Minnesota, down 2 to 3 points in polling against President Biden, which is bad news, again, for Democrats. That's huge for Republicans, but Vice President Harris, as we've been seeing, has expanded her lead even more over Joe Biden. She's doing way better against President Trump. And we're seeing Virginia probably going back to likely blue because she's expanded the lead now to 5-6 points back in Virginia. Same with New Hampshire and Maine. Again, President Trump, former President Trump, cut those two states down around 2 to 3 points again against President Biden. But now that President Biden drops out, like I said, now that he dropped out, Vice President Harris is doing way better than President Biden, matching up against former President Trump, at least as of now. And it's likely that she will take the states of New Hampshire and the state of Maine. So, for political newbies out there, these states are the most important states of the election, right? They were the biggest states in 2020. They were the biggest states in 2016. These are the key swing states that are extremely, extremely close. These states will decide the election. So, never mind New York, Minnesota, New Mexico, New Jersey. Former President Trump didn't need those against President Biden. He was, just if he gets some of these swing states here, he wins with the lead. Well, now it's not lead anymore, but he was dominating President Biden in the polls in Wisconsin. There was one point where President Trump was up over President Biden by 7 points in Michigan, 6 to 7 points in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona. It looked like a clear victory in the swing states for President Trump. Now, President Trump won all of these states except for Nevada in 2016, but President Biden came in 2020 and flipped Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada. So President Biden won all of them except for North Carolina in 2020. So President Trump won all of them except for Nevada in 2016. President Biden won all of them except for North Carolina in 2020. He flipped all these states over here. The Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona he flipped. So Vice President Harris, she is doing, like I said, much better than President Biden. She has cut leads in these swing states down a pretty significant amount. So let's start with, if we start with North Carolina, out of these swing states, this is the most likely one you can make a prediction for. That's probably going to be Republican. It was very close in 2020. President Trump won it. He also won it in 2016. Mitt Romney as well won it in 2012. And, it depends on what Vice President Harris does. If she chooses the governor, Roy Cooper of North Carolina, it could make some noise, and that could help her win that state. It is a very close state, but it's safe to say that's Republicans because it's not that close. It's safe to say that President Trump will hang on there for now, but that's definitely a state that Vice President Kamala Harris and her team are eyeing. So now we get even closer, right? We get even closer. President Trump had like 5-6 point leads in Georgia and Arizona. Now they're down to 2 to 3 point leads. So we look at Georgia and Arizona now. These two states were red since Bill Clinton. They were red states, but President Biden was able to flip them both barely, just barely, in 2020. He won Georgia, President Biden did, by just 12,000 votes in 2020. And he won Arizona by just 11,000 votes in 2020 and flipped those two states in the first time they went blue since the 90s, which is pretty crazy. Now, since 2020, if we start with Georgia, President Trump has been kind of dominating in polls against President Biden in Georgia. He's expanded the lead. Of course, Georgia in 2022 re-elected their governor, Republican Governor Brian Kemp, by a good amount. Out of these states, the next safest call to make would be Georgia for Republicans. Some say that these two states going blue were a fluke in 2020, maybe, but President Trump has been dominating in the polls. He was up 5 to 6 points against President Biden. Now, Vice President Harris has been doing better than President Biden, and that leads down to 2 or 3 points now in Georgia. So we're going to go ahead and put Georgia red for Republicans, and same for Arizona. Arizona is going to be a little closer, I think. So Republicans now, if they get one of these 3 states, they win. But Arizona is going to be a little closer, I think. I still think you'll go red because, like I said, President Trump 2 to 3 point lead there as well. Still, he was up 5 to 6 points over President Biden. It barely went blue in 2020. It's always usually red. However, right, Arizona in 2022 did elect a Republican, did elect a Democratic governor as well as a Democratic senator, Mark Kelly, and Katie Hobbs. So that's going to be close. But based off polling, based off data against Vice President Harris and President Biden, President Trump should take Arizona. So now the Republicans just need one of these 3 belt states. And Nevada as well is still there. So if we take a look at Nevada first, so Nevada is tough. These 4 states generally are going to probably decide the election, especially Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, the Rust Belt states. But if we start with Nevada, it's usually blue. It's been blue since George Bush. But President Trump, again, especially against President Biden, has been doing very well in Nevada. In 2022, they elected a Republican governor, Joe Lombardo. And the state has been polling-wise showing more of a chance President Trump wins that. I think it's going to be even closer to Arizona. Vice President Harris could very well take Nevada. President Trump is doing worse against Kamala Harris than President Biden. He was polling way better against President Biden in Nevada. Just like every state, Vice President Harris was doing very well in the polls, way better than President Biden. But it's going to be tough. I think based off polling, it's going to be tough because especially it hasn't gone red since George Bush. But I think it will go red based off polling data. And that brings Republicans now to 268. So there's a good chance all of this happens. But here's what you want to know. These 3 states, the Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, these are the biggest states of the election, probably the closest states of the election, and it's really the 3 states that are generally going to be toss-up states, right? So if President Trump were to get one of these 3 states, it's likely that he does win the election. Of course, he could win Wisconsin or Michigan and still lose Georgia or Arizona and still lose. But it's more likely definitely that he wins Georgia and Arizona and Nevada than winning one of these 3 states. So it's very likely anything could happen here. Vice President Kamala Harris could win these 3 and win, or President Trump could take just one of these, or 2 or 3 and win. So as of now, as of July 27th, 2024, Kamala Harris has significantly expanded her lead in Wisconsin, based off, going from President Biden's polling numbers in Wisconsin. She's definitely doing way better than him, and she's actually in some polls as of today taking a lead over former President Trump. And essentially it's a toss-up. So if I were to make a prediction based off things are going, and President Trump just barely won the state in 2020 by 20,000 votes. President Biden won the state in 2020 by 20,000 votes. But then in 2016, President Trump won the state by 23,000 votes. So very close. Based off polling data, it's safe. It's going to be a toss-up. But if I had to say, Wisconsin may go to the Democrats, Vice President Kamala Harris. But again, these 3 are toss-up states, right? We don't even really know what's going to happen. In Michigan as well, I'm going to go give to the Democrats. President Trump, now, out of these 3 states, the most likely to go Democrat, I would say, is Michigan. 2020, President Biden won the state by 150,000 votes. Still a very close state, but President Trump was dominating President Biden in the polls in Michigan, at one point to a 7-point polling lead in Michigan before President Biden dropped out. Now, Kamala Harris has shrunken that lead down to 1 point or tied. So if you had to choose, I think that would go blue. And then you have Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, though, it is safer to call than these 2 states as of now, right? As of now, these 2 are toss-ups generally, right? As of now, Pennsylvania is leaning Trump still, and President Trump still has like a 2 to 3 point lead on average in Pennsylvania. He's doing way better in Pennsylvania than Michigan and Wisconsin. So if you had to pick right now, former President Trump is doing better in Wisconsin and Michigan than Vice President Kamala Harris. So we will give Pennsylvania to former President Donald Trump, or I should say, former President Donald Trump is doing much better in Pennsylvania against Vice President Harris in Pennsylvania than Michigan and Wisconsin. So as of now, that's generally what things are. Like I said, this is generally probably the map with these three states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania being toss-ups. Now, we did leave one thing out. Here's a thing to keep in mind before this election. So obviously, if President Trump wins one of these three, if this is the map, he wins. If Vice President Harris wins all three, she wins. And that could very well happen. These three states are very close. These two are essentially tied or have a small Vice President Harris lead. This state of Pennsylvania has a slight President Trump lead, so it could go either way. However, there was one big vote here in Nebraska I want to get to quick. Lastly, so the second district of Nebraska. So Nebraska, like Maine, does things a little differently. They have a statewide elector and they have districts, right? They have 3 districts in Nebraska, each district representing 1 electoral vote. So the second district in Nebraska, these 3 are fine. The third and first district and the state for Republicans, but the second district is a little tricky. This is a very close district. President Obama won it in 2008, but then it went back to Mitt Romney won it in 2012 for Republicans. President Trump held on to it in 2016 by just 2 points, but then President Biden won it in 2020 by about 5 points or 6 points rather. So that's crucial. President Trump winning it, then Biden winning by 6 points. And then in 2022, this one electorate in Nebraska, by 0.1%, voted for the Republican governor there that got elected. By 0.1%, that district was Republican. So it's very close district in Nebraska, very swing district. Why does that matter? Because if Vice President Harris, and she could very well do this as of now, wins all 3 states, right, of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, that will bring her to 269. Now, if she were to hang on, the Democrats were to hang on to the second district in Nebraska, it's all over if they win all 3. But President Trump, assuming the rest of the map goes as is, he could lose Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, but still not lose. If he hangs on to this second district in Nebraska, he will tie Vice President Kamala Harris despite losing Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. So this district is something to keep an eye on. And who knows what even happens. If it's a tie, it does go to the House of Representatives, but hopefully that doesn't happen. So that's how things are looking like. So keep that one in mind because it's a very close district. Like I said, 0.1% in 2022 for the Republican governor. Biden won in 2020. 2016, Trump won. It goes back and forth, and that's big because Vice President Harris could very well, as of today, win these 3 states, and that put her at 270, and she'd win exactly at 270 if she were to hang on to this district. But if President Trump gets that district and loses these 3 states, the Rust Belt states, it's tied at 269. So for the newbies out there, I know that's a bit of an explanation, but now you know, and you're caught up on everything. So as of now, this is generally what the map is going to be with Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and of course, the second district in Nebraska being toss-ups. Georgia, a small Trump lead. Arizona, a small Trump lead. Nevada, a small Trump lead. Pennsylvania, a small Trump lead, but it's very much a toss-up. So that's how things are looking like. Let me know if you guys, if you have any thoughts about this video. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. This was Presidential Map for Newbies, and let me know what I should do next.